Welcome to lesson number 3 on the miracle of America. And our lesson number 3 is the founders' basic beliefs. And this turns out to be an extremely important lesson, covers quite a bit of ground, and if you fill in the blanks as quickly as you can so you won't get behind, we'll be able to go through it in good order. Now, have you ever wondered why basic beliefs were important? After all, if you get a good structure of government, shouldn't that be enough? We've got the Constitution all written. Why are basic beliefs important? And the Founding Fathers said beliefs are important because people behave. People behave according to the way they believe. All right, now, this is one of the reasons that the founders felt that this Constitution would only be sustained if our people, our youth particularly, were taught the foundation that's behind the Constitution, the basic beliefs that are there, and that's what we're going to talk about now. For example, over here you'll find a group of students saluting the flag. I mean, they're very respectful of our society and so forth. Another place you'll find them burning the flag. All right, what's the difference? They're both American students. What's the difference? Beliefs. Beliefs. That's what the founders were talking about. All right, this was demonstrated during the 60s, as all of us remember so vividly. All right, now, how do you account for the fact that the beliefs of the Founding Fathers are almost identical? That's one of the most amazing things to me as I read their writings. They belonged to different churches. Some of them didn't belong to any church at all. They came from all different types or different levels of economics, and yet their beliefs are almost identical, and that's your Roman numeral 1. All right. The fact that they were united in these beliefs is very important because had it been otherwise, it would have been difficult. Now, as all of you know, they did quarrel about how to carry them out extensively, but not on their basic goals. When they got together and went into their debating and so forth, it was always, how can we carry out the things they believed to be true? We think that the reason they were so united was because of 2 things. First of all, they were extremely widely read and out of the same books, and that's number 1. Under B. And 2, their basic beliefs were based on self-evident truths. Self-evident truths. Now, this is something that you remember all of the Founding Fathers, Jefferson, others mentioned this frequently. Basic beliefs on self-evident truths, all right? Now, what were some of the principal books from which the founders gleaned their great ideas? What were some of the sources that they had? Well, there was, as a capital C is these ideas. That's very important that we find those. Number 1, we had Polybius, the great Greek historian of 150 BC. Polybius, 150 BC. And then there was Cicero, who was the great Roman, 75 BC, who talked about the Roman Republic. Gave us a lot of those basic ideas, some things that were good and some things that were not. Now, that we also had this great man, Sir Edward Coke, come along, the English jurist. He lived in the days of James I, and he reminded Englishmen that that original Magna Carta that established inalienable rights was for all freemen. And so that's a code of rights. He was the one that helped revive interest in it. And then we had Algernon Sidney. Algernon Sidney was beheaded by Charles II for saying in 1676 what the founders said in 1776. 4 is your blank, 1676. Then there came 4 men whose writings are classics. Not studied much anymore. I'm always proud of any teachers in our universities who will ask students to study these classics. John Locke of England, Baron Charles de Montesquieu of France, Adam Smith of Scotland, and Sir William Blackstone of England. Now let me just say a word about John Locke. There was a great man. I have a great admiration for him because John Locke, his father was an attorney and a Puritan. He trained John Locke in self-study. In fact, he taught John Locke for the first 14 years of his life. It was a father-son tutoring. And John Locke turned out to be a brilliant student in his own right. Now, in 1673, he'd gone up enough in the bureaucracy of the British government so that he was given the assignment of writing a constitution for the Carolinas. And it was a terrible failure, Now, A was self-study, and B is failure. And In 1680, after much study, he decided that he knew more about it. So he wrote his first treatise on civil government, in which he proved that there is no divine right of kings. There is no divine right of a family or a king to rule. It belongs to all the people, so see as kings. And 10 years later, 1690, he wrote his famous second treatise on civil government, in which he set forth what it would be like if a society were set up according to natural moral law by the Creator. And that's the one that really impressed the founders. Nobody ever done that, not in recent years anyway. What would it be like if you had a government based on natural moral law? So natural is your capital D. Now Locke said that the advantages of these principles is that they were reasonable, that's number one, and morally right. I want you to notice how many of the shocks that Americans have been going through during the last 40 years turned out to be unreasonable. You just couldn't justify it on the basis of rationale. And as you examined it carefully, in many cases it was morally wrong. All right. Now, if you get ruler's law and you get it unreasonable, arbitrary, and morally wrong, we have really drifted from the founders' original ideal. Now, under ruler's law, a monarchy or modern socialism, the force of government is often used. The force of government is so often used in ways that are neither reasonable nor moral. All right, although the reasoning of John Locke seemed philosophically sound, it scared the founders just a little bit because nobody was doing it. They wanted to know if it was practical. Were these ideas practical? That's your capital F there. And lo and behold, a great man, Baron Charles de Montesquieu of France, had taken 20 years to find out. As I read Montesquieu, I can't believe the extent of that man's scholarship in ancient history. So Charles Montesquieu came along, and capital A is 20 years to write The Spirit of the Laws. That's his great book, his great classic. And he demonstrated from an enormous amount of historical research that Abraham Lincoln was absolutely right, that the only bright hope of humanity for a government of the people, for the people, and by the people must be based on natural moral law. Natural moral law. That's the hope for humanity, is to find that marvelous combination of natural moral law. All right? Such a government must be structured in a way that it takes into account the weaknesses of human nature. The weaknesses of human nature. Have you noticed that very often people are constantly looking for that benevolent ruler? Where's a wonderful man, just so perfect, we can make him president or make him king? There is no such human being. And that's why you have to set up your government that takes that into account. Otherwise, you'll be abused. There's a tendency, once one gets the power of government, to corrupt their natural inclinations. There's an explanation for that psychologically that we don't have time to go into, but it does. Once you get power, it tends to corrupt the normal instincts of human beings. So they become greedy, and they become very profligate with other people's money. All right? So number one is corrupt. Now, it was Lord Acton that said, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's your blank, absolutely. It was for this same reason that Jefferson made his famous statement. He said, now don't ask us to constantly trust our leaders. We're going to support them, but because they're human beings, we're not going to go around saying, we know you'll be kind to us. We're going to watch them very carefully. As a matter of fact, in questions of power, he said, let no more be said of confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief with the change of the Constitution. All right? Now, Montesquieu verified what Polybius, John Locke, and others had said about the importance of separating powers of government so that they are separated vertically and horizontally. Remember that? All right, in our second lesson, that's what we talked about. And it was interesting that Montesquieu had set forth in his writings, in Book 11, all the structure for a constitution. He actually outlined a constitution. Well, why didn't the Founding Fathers copy it? because it was one man's ideas. And at the convention, there wasn't any one man idea that had all the correct ideas. You have to pool them. And so what the founders did was to take Montesquieu's formula and then they improved upon it. They improved upon it. That's capital D. All right, once the founding fathers had accepted the Creator's natural moral law as the best foundation for a sound and just government, the next question was whether there was a system of natural moral law in dealing with the problem of economics so that they could all become prosperous. You know, economics are complicated. I'll tell you, this give and take and exchange and having it fair and honest and a people disciplined morally so that they can all be happy about each deal and both feel that they've profited from it. You see, the profit system should be good for both sides, not just for the seller. All right, now can we find one? Well, Adam Smith came up with it in 1776 at the very moment when it was badly needed. 1776, he published his book. He's a Scotchman, and he published the book in Scotland. He'd been kidnapped when he was a little boy at the age of 3 by gypsies, but fortunately, they got him back. His uncle rescued him. Now, what was Adam Smith's great contribution? He said, first of all, you have to realize what wealth is. Wealth is not gold and silver and those kind of precious things. You want to know what it really is? It's food, clothes, houses, streets, schools, churches. That's wealth. You could starve to death sitting on a pile of gold. That was his great message. All right, these things that many people put their hearts on, the treasures that they seek after, it doesn't really represent the wealth that is needed for a prosperous society. And so Adam Smith said, if you want to raise the standard of living, accumulating gold won't do it. You do it by setting up a system of economics so that you get abundance. You need everything to be abundant and cheap. Now, if you can get a system that will make food and everything else abundant and cheap, we're on the way. Everybody follow that? All right. All right, now he said there are certain things that you have to keep in mind to achieve this. First is specialized production. Specialized production. Now you see, if we're living on a farm, we used to put soles on our shoes ourselves, and we milked our cows ourselves, we grew our vegetables ourselves. That was kind of a nice feeling. But you know, you can get a lot of things. If somebody will specialize on it, they can make better shoes if that's all they do. And specialized production is good for all of us if we're all in an integrated economy. All right? Then we need a free market where we take those shoes and exchange them for what other people have got. You see, each one of us specializing, and then a free market in which we can exchange all of these things. We go over there and we bargain with our money, which represents our labors, and that's the way this thing starts moving in a very dynamic way. Then we must base the supply, or what is produced, on the basis of supply and demand. The government never will know what we really want. They can't keep up with it. Their computers will not work it out. We are so fickle, we change in our spirit and our mood and our desires almost within 24 hours. And the market will show it, because the people will be voting with their dollars there. All right? Now, where everyone, it should be a system where everyone improves his position by making a profit. Now, how about that? I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Some people are very much against a profit. Do you know what a profit is? It's what makes something worthwhile. I offer you 25 cents to cut my lawn. Any takers? 25 cents to cut my lawn. Anybody interested? No, you enjoy TV more than that. But if I can get up, you know, $4 or $5, maybe you come over and cut it. I've got to make it worthwhile. From where you're sitting in that comfortable chair, I got to make it worthwhile for you to get out of that chair and have the momentum and the initiative to come over and cut my lawn. Right? Okay, worthwhile. That's all profit is. It's what you add to the cost of goods that makes it worthwhile for you to produce it. All right? And now number 5. The secret to the success of a natural law free market is competition. Competition. Now, we have to admit that competition is painful. And everybody who gets into business hopes that he'll get a monopoly and nobody else will compete. But they do compete, and that's what gives us really a greater abundance. That's number 1. and it will improve the quality. Because we just barely got set up and somebody come along and made it better. So we got to go back and make it better. Or he made many, many more at a cheaper price, you see. So number 3 is cuts prices. Excuse me, 2 is improves quality. Did you get that? And then 3 cuts prices. All right? Now, what do you think the greatest threat? What is the greatest threat to a free market economy? It's government. It's government interference. Because, you see, the role of government is a very important one. But it has a tendency, if it'll come in, it will start fixing prices, fixes wages, starts controlling production, starts controlling distribution, and I'll demonstrate to you in just a moment how destructive that is to the development of a real dynamic economy. If you want things abundant and cheap, keep the government out of it, this good man Adam Smith said. Now, what should the government do? Well, it has a very important role, and we've got them listed here. Number 1, it should prevent force. And that's where the mafia comes in and says, if you don't buy our brand of beer, we're going to drive a truck right through front of your store. That sound familiar? Sure, we have some of that in our society, and it ought to be rooted out. The government should prevent anybody using force to make other people buy their goods. Or fraud. They should prevent fraud, whether somebody tries to sell you a lot down in Florida, beautiful Florida where you can spend the winter, and it turns out to be in the middle of a swamp. All right. The government also has the responsibility of preventing monopoly. Now, some have disputed that somewhat. Maybe they have a good point. But no one should be allowed to get all the wheat you see and then boost up the price and extort a high price out for people. Keep competition going. And then lastly, debauchery. Now, debauchery refers to the vices of prostitution and gambling and pornography and all of these things. The government has a responsibility to keep those forces from exploiting the people commercially. Vice is very easy to exploit commercially. Always has been. And it's the government's responsibility to keep those elements of debauchery down. All right, capital D. Now, Adam Smith was tremendously successful. I should say it differently. Adam Smith's formula has always proven tremendously successful because of 4 principles. If I showed you his book called The Wealth of Nations, excuse me, don't have one handy, but if I showed you that book, you would notice that it's about 2.5 inches thick. So I'm going to reduce it to 4 principles, and then that'll save you all that reading. The freedom to try. Maintain the freedom to buy. Capital D it's all under freedom. They're all different forms of freedom, you see. Freedom to try. Freedom to buy. Freedom to sell. And the freedom to fail. Oh, fail. Who wants to fail? Hey, how about that? None of us want to fail, and that's why we get up so early in the morning. As a little boy, age 8, I used to get up early in the morning, milk cows up in Canada in below zero weather. Why? Because we needed that money that would come from cheese and the milk and so forth. I tell you, that was mighty important. All right, now I want you to just go back now. See, here's a little fellow. Let's see if I can get over here where you can see him now. So he got an idea. So that's freedom to try. What do you think he's going to do? I'd like to find out. Okay, let's see what he's going to do. Freedom to try. Okay, he goes down and he buys some stuff. Oh, my goodness. Now, over in a communist country, you have to be very careful because they have deployment of material. You have to get somebody to sign up that it's all right for you to buy it. And over here, you can buy anything you want to. Nobody says, what are you going to use it for? It's legitimate, generally. Just buy whatever you want, all right? What's he going to do? What's he going to build? Oh, he's going to, lemonade stand, huh? My goodness, in the middle of the summer, 25 cents a glass. Boy, is he going to make some money. Yeah, I think that's going to be a big success. That's just great. And he is a success, so he has the freedom to sell, you see. He's doing just fine until, look what happens. Oh my goodness, what's happened here? Look at that dude over there. Man, you see what he's got over there? You see what's happened here? He got a machine over there. Nobody hasn't even tended. Oh, look at all those flavors. Look at all those delicious flavors. Look at that price. Man, 10 cents. All right. Now, is our friend out of business? Yeah. He is, unless he gets a machine that does better. The price is probably about as low as you can get it, I imagine. He might get some different flavors. Got to get something better. Or take his program and go where the other man isn't. See what it does? Freedom to try, buy, sell. or he has exercised the freedom to fail. Now, I just want to show you what that's done in America. I'm going to give you an example of something you're all familiar with and show you how it happened. You see that little instrument? Okay, that's a ballpoint pen. Now, that came out on the market about 1945. I was with the FBI at the time, and I went down and went across the street and saw a stationery store, and it had a big sign. It said, "Perpetual writing pens here now." Now, if anybody needs a perpetual writing pen, it's an FBI agent, because he has to make his notes in ink. And we used to carry those big Parker pens, great big fat ones. Put them in your pocket. All the time they're leaking. Get all over your underwear, your shirt, make your wife mad. And so I thought a perpetual writing pen would be great. And I went over. I said, "Can I see your perpetual writing pen?" "You bet." Handed it to me, and I started to try it. Smooth, no blur, no blot. Ooh, that's nice. I said, "Are they really perpetual?" "Well," he said, "we have refills. But they do write a long time, long time." "That's from 3 weeks." "Hey, that's great. How much are they?" $12.95. $12.95. See, that's like $35 or $40 today. And no FBI agent could afford that. And so I broke the 10th commandment and coveted it all over the place, but I put it down. And I went home. But on the way home, I thought, oh my goodness, I have a birthday coming up. My wife's always asking for suggestions on my birthday. And sometimes she splurges on birthdays. So anyway, I mentioned it to her, that there was a perpetual writing pen. She said, "That's nice. Where can I get it?" I told her. She said, "What's the price?" I said, $12.95. "Oh," she said, "use your old one." So I didn't get one. But somebody got one. Notice what they did. Somebody got one, and they took it apart. They took this apart. All right. You see, there's nothing particularly fancy about the barrel. We were already using things like that for automatic pencils. The genius of this thing was that little BB. Boy, it's going to be hard to put in there with a sledge and anvil. Now, you see, you start hand crimping those. You start hand crimping those, you see, then trying it out, then hand crimping it, and trying it out. That's going to be expensive, isn't it? Somebody decides to go to the bank and set up a machine where you can put that into the machine and it'll automatically give you a thousandth of an inch clearance. See, just enough to let it roll, but let it seal up when the pressure's removed. All right? So he gets a machine, goes, hey, works. Yeah, perfect, we got it. And the ballpoint pen came out for $4.95. That's when all the FBI agents got them. Isn't that great? All right, now what about the man selling them at $12.95? Could he fail now? Boy, could he ever. He sure could. But he went down, he found out about this Skousen machine, and so he went to the bank, got $5 million or whatever, and he set up a whole bank of Skousen machines. So all he had to do was to press a button, and I'll go, and they roll out on a little belt. Girls put them all together. Guess what? $2.98. Oh my goodness, we bought them too soon. $2.98 for a ballpoint pen. Isn't that great? Now the man at $4.95, he's all upset. He's got to do something about it. Next thing I know, $1.98. Can't believe it. A beautiful $12.95 ballpoint pen for $1.98. Isn't that a good bargain? Now that's got to be the bottom though. No, 98 cents. Holy smoke, how can they do that? No, 89 cents. 69 cents. 59 cents. 49 cents. 39 cents. Why, you don't even buy refills anymore. Throw them away when they get dry. But that's got to be the bottom. No, 29 cents. 29 cents. And then 19 cents. Now they can't, it must just be a liter. They can't do it for 19 cents. Next thing I know, Kmart, some of the cut rate stores, you know, 10 for $1. 10 for $1. And if you know a real estate man, you can get one free. Now, remember what Adam Smith said? There are some laws. If you let them operate, things will be abundant and cheap. Fantastic, isn't it? Won't you agree? All right. Now, what if the government had come along and said, $4.95 is a reasonable price, you know? I see that's what they're doing with energy now. We've got a gasoline glut in this country, and the price of the pump is continually going up because competition is not being allowed to flow. Deregulation has not come in. Freedom is not operating. That's why you have this. Everything is it's not a natural system that the government has employed. All right, now that's the story of the ballpoint pen. Parable of the ballpoint pen. All right, now when Adam Smith came out with his new book, the United States was the first to try out his ideas. Isn't that interesting? We're the very first to try it out. Capital E. And so far as the founders had established, a determination to set up their government now and their economy on these basic natural laws. Now, if they can just get the people to behave sensibly so that in their relations one with another, people will feel good about it. It will be an honest economy. And getting them to behave responsibly is a task of the schools and the churches and the home. All right, we want a system so that it's self-governing at each level, it's self-sustaining at each level, it's self-repairing at each level. And that really is the genius of the founders' original formula, which we've strayed from. Now they wanted to know, how can we be sure that it will be a just society? And Sir William Blackstone is the one that came up with that. That's your blank there, a just society. Now, William Blackstone established the basic principles of people's law in his commentaries, published in 1765. And capital A, they sold as many copies in America as they did in England. But he was easy to read. I've got all 4 of his volumes, and I want to tell you, they are just great. And his first 50 pages are especially interesting because all of the basic beliefs of the Founding Fathers are established there. Now, it was interesting that Washington said that if you do not preserve the basic beliefs that Blackstone and Locke and Montesquieu and these men are talking about, if you don't preserve those basic beliefs the way we have established them, our institutes will fall. You must teach them to your children. And so capital B is preserved. There is a responsibility, once these things have been established, to preserve them, Washington said. And you know that's the message of his, the final message of his farewell address that's so famous. All right, now, he said it's important for us to teach our people, all the masses of our people, to know these truths and conduct their lives in harmony with them. And if they do this, the rights of the people will be protected and the administration of government will be reasonable and moral. Now, that's really what these seminars are all about. We want our people to know what a tremendous contribution the Founding Fathers made, what a tremendous formula it was as long as we were using it. And if we can sell our people on it, we can restore it. That's really why we're all met together and why we're trying to encourage everyone to just stop and think what's been happening to America. Now that's what we talked about in the first 2 lessons. What's been happening to America. Now it's our task to restore these great principles so that we can get America back on the track. Now, that concludes the first half of our lesson number 3.